Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about rows, the different types of rows I like to have clients do, which can actually vary a lot. I only have a few demonstrated here, but they absolutely can vary. But what we're going to see as my three favorites, and you guys will see Mike and Saif in here. What you're going to see as my favorites is going to be seal rows, some sort of standing barbell row, whether it's a bent over row or a pendlay row. And a pendlay row is more the traditional barbell row. And then you're going to see dumbbell rows. And I think that for most people, between these three types of variations, we pretty much cover everything that we want. So the question we get into is why rowing instead of, say, pull-ups? Well, with pull-ups, one of the things that I personally find, overuse happens really, really easy. We can only do so many pull-ups, right? We can only do so many pull-ups. And I personally get a lot of overuse from them easily. We've seen me experience it multiple times. I go through love-hate phases with the pull-up. But I also have, younger, healthier lifters that we do a lot of pull-ups. It's as many as 10 sets a week. But that seems to be more or less the upper threshold. And sometimes for me, I start experiencing issues from them even with that. Whether it's strains in the outer insertion of the lat, shoulder issues, and then I have some lifters who really can't do them. We have others who can only do them with a neutral grip, others who can get away with a wide grip. So it really depends a lot upon the individual lifter. Depends a lot. So the downside also to rowing is that it does put a little more emphasis on the bicep. To pull-ups. It puts a little more emphasis on the bicep and the lats, and a lot less on the rest of the musculature of the back. And we know that pull-ups and chin-ups, based on EMG, different studies we have, are arguably probably the best bicep exercises you can do. Maybe some heavy barbell curls can compete, but when we look at any of the data, things like concentration curls, preacher curls, none of that stuff can actually compete. It's just an inferior stimulus to them. And it's not saying it can't grow biceps, but we're talking on a set for set, rep for rep basis. Okay, but a lot of my people do the pull-ups. A lot of them do chin-ups. But again, bicep and then lat, and it tends to hit the lower lats a little bit more. When we come over to rowing, we get a little more diversity. And I'm not saying we don't have diversity with pull-ups. We do. We can change grip widths. We can change grip angles, underhand, pronated, neutral grip. We have a lot of options. With rows, we have even more versatility. And we have the ability to further bias different areas of the back easier. Now, big case it could be made, if we go off of hypertrophy data or EMG, rows tend to be a little inferior for the biceps. So if you care about really big guns, rows may not always be your best choice, at least for the bicep. You can arguably hit the brachialis, radial brachialis very, very effectively. But we know based upon bicep hypertrophy studies, the rows are just not going to hit the biceps as hard as a curl. We know this. It's been studied. It's been found. They don't build as much bicep. They build it, but it's something like 70% of the muscle. If 6 sets of rows were done a week versus 6 sets of curls, it's only 70% of the muscle growth was seen in the bicep. That's reasonable evidence to support this fact. Pull-ups and chin-ups, it's not the case. Now, the other thing with rows, though, the big advantage we have is the ability to hit a lot of the upper back more. Arguably, we can build just as much lat. We can build just as much lat as we can on a pull-up. I've always had a big back just from rowing. People see me do tons of pull-ups later, but not realize I built my back off rows and deadlifts. And I think that you can do that. If we look at the different types of rows we're doing, you guys saw me doing just a bent over row there. Well, a bent over row, what does it do? I think it's arguably a really good supplemental lift for your deadlift. Why? Because you're upright a little more, right? And the more we go upright, the more upper back we hit at the expense of a little bit of lat. All right? Shifts the bias upwards. We hit the traps more. We hit the posterior delts more, the rhomboids more. And what we need to understand when we say these things, all these muscles get worked on all these movements, whether it's a pull-up or a row variation. You're going to hit the lats, you're going to hit all three heads of the traps, you're going to hit the rear delts. They're all going to get worked. It's just to what degree. All right, upright row, we hit all those areas hard. Also trains your grip super hard because you're having to hold onto the weight the whole time. There's no resets. All right, no resetting off the floor. Also trains the lower back to stay in an isometric contracted position. All right, that can be advantageous for your deadlift. Okay, so there's a lot going on there. We look at something like these seal rows. Now, Mikey does his off of a hang in an actual bench made for seal rows, and I love that. I love that bench. I need to get one eventually. All right, I need to get one eventually. Which, again, gives you the grip advantage, everything else. But on a seal row, there's no cheating. The low back is removed. You're forced to go very, very strict. You are perfectly vertical with the floor, or parallel with the floor. Sorry. Parallel with the floor. What does that mean? It means that it really gives a balanced development. Lats. Because we're forced to go a little wider on those rear delts, get hit really hard. We could argue the seal row hits the lat as hard as a pull-up. In my experience, it does. All right. In addition to getting the benefits of a row, a little more upper back. Now, what we lose here is, of course, maybe the traction benefits of a pull-up, maybe the restorative. Well, if we've got things like reverse hypers, it's not going to matter much. We're losing the isometric contraction in the posterior chain. But it's a very, very strict movement, right? Very strict movement, and really, really hammers the middle and upper back in a very, very balanced way. And of course, when you see me do them, I do them off the floor from a dead stop on the bench setup I have. Then you saw Saif doing the dumbbell rows. Well, what do dumbbell rows do? Same thing. We remove the low back and it makes it a stricter movement. And these movements that are strict like this, if you're going through a phase of training where you're doing higher volumes of deadlifting, it's really advantageous because we don't want to do a lot of standing rows sometimes if we're doing much deadlift volume because we can't really handle both. We can't handle both. But in the case of the dumbbell, chest supported, we can change each side. It gives us variation in the range of motion, and we get the benefits of dumbbells, and one of those is the ability to adjust the movement as we get closer to failure for really complete development overall. So dumbbells really do bring a lot to the table, and I think between these movements, we can get absolutely balanced back development, barring the low back, and we need to be doing some stuff for the low back. It gives us a lot of variations in tools, right? We have a lot of variations available here. We have a lot of tools at our disposal with different types of rows to thoroughly work different parts of the back at the ratios that we want. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.